Hi everyone, it's me, Sailor Moon, Serena here, and me, Sailor Mercury, Sailor Quicksilver, Amy here. And today we're going to talk about, folks who hate why folks make a big deal about the Deke Sailor Moon. And we already talked about that earlier today, but now we're going to talk about why they make a big deal out of it. I mean, it's like 30 years and folks still make a big deal out of it, and they will still bitch and rant about, oh, I didn't like the show playing. I didn't like how the Settlenders, how they were speaking Settlelander English, which is almost the same kind of English that's spoken in the 4-1 Reichs, but they made a big deal about that. And then some folks would make a big deal about, oh, the blood being taken out, or some of the fighting being skimmed it out when there was fighting, or how, strikes were shifted from like one name to another. So folks will make a big deal about that. And they like to say, well, what about Zoisite and Millikite? Yeah, there are folks out there that got irked or angered over Zoisite being a woman in a Deke world, but we already talked about that. But they make a thing as if Deke should have never done it. And this film isn't going to be about why did Deke make Zoisite a woman. Zoisite is a woman in Deke's world, and some folks are unhappy with it. Some folks thought, oh, they did it because they were against unstraight. No, I don't think they did it because they were against unstraights at all. I think that Deke did it because Deke was worried about what UPN and WB might think if they happened to see that. I think they were also worried about what bearers and teachers and worship leaders would think about it too at the time. So they made a big deal about that, make it more than what it was, And they also bitch and rant about names being shifted or, like, oh no, why is, like, I'm not, they like a big deal and say, oh no, I make big deal about my name being Serena, but in the Deke world and the Pioneer world, that's my name. If you don't like it, that's not my mind. But they make a big deal about all that shit, don't they? Yeah, they do, Sailor Moon. They do. They make a big deal. They're like, oh no, why is your name Amy? It should be Amy. Well, first off, Amy is a Latin borrowed name, and that's my name in the Deke world and also in the Pioneer world. And folks make a big deal about it and say, oh no, why did they shift her name? Like, in their mind, they thought that everyone should have known the Dawnish names, and it irks them or angers them that the Dawnish borrow names were borrowed out for other borrow names. And also they make a big deal about, the Dark Kingdom, kidnapping us instead of slaying us, or being pissed off that you fighting Queen Beryl was one saga instead of two or whatever. Or they also make a big thing about, about how Rini's gun is missing. When Rini pulls a gun out, they make a big deal about why is that not there. And then there's something they bitch and rant about as if Deke was answerable for this one, but there weren't. About, Rini being a bully to you and everything. And they think, oh, Deke, you should have done something about that. Well, then, right. So you didn't like Rini being a bully, but that wasn't Deke's call. Toei chose her to make that way, and Deke just had to work around it. But at the end of the day, a lot of folks, who hate the Deke Sailor Moon, know that at the time have the Viz Sailor Moon, and a lot of them seem to be happy. But there still are those out there. There still seem to be irked or angered over all the things that Deke did. And they got pissed off and they said, oh, well, it's not the true Sailor Moon. Deke took too many freedoms, or something like that. And then they go out of their way to also say that it's not the true take of Sailor Moon or whatever. But why they make a big deal about something that has not been streamed or not been broadcasted in 30 years is beyond me. Something that you have to go to all of these sundry websites, only to watch. Yeah, you're right, Sailor Mercury. You're right, Sailor Quicksilver. You're right about that, Amy. A lot of folks seem to make a big deal, about Sailor Moon, my Deke Sailor Moon, and how it got skimmed and how names were shifted and how some of the fighting was shifted around and what was being said wasn't what was said in, and about how Zoisite became a woman or is a woman in Deke's world, and all that things. And they'll say that it's unwatchable, and they'll say that no one should watch it. But I've watched Deke Sailor Moon over the years, and it's still watchable. It still holds up to this day. And yes, it's true, a lot of things that they said or at least did might not fly these days, but you got to keep in mind that Deke Sailor Moon was a crafting of its time. And at the time, all of those things that they did, was the standard at the time. If you know what I mean. So, and it was also kind of, also kind of sad that a lot of folks out there, hate on something. And the truth is, you shouldn't be hating on anything. And why they make a big deal out of it is beyond me. But yeah, those are just some of the things they make a big deal about when it comes to the Deke Sailor Moon. All right. Give it a like, share and playlist it, and we'll see you later.